Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. So last month for my letter and prompt TBW game, I ended up having to pick 4 movies instead of 3. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today, is all 4 of the films that I watched specifically for my letter and prompt TBW game. We are going to rank and review these from my least favorite up to my most favorite of the month. So you can see we have an Arrow video release, we have 2 from Criterion Collection, and a DVD as well with Phantasm Collection. So yeah, excited to talk about these. It was a very interesting month, so let's get into it, guys. Before we do though, if you could hit that like button down below, that engagement really does help me out. But with that said, let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right in to my rank and review of my July 2022 TBW. So falling in at number 4 might be a little bit controversial because it is one of my Criterion picks. This is from 1970, Gimme Shelter, and this one is directed by David and Albert Maysles and Charlotte Zwerin, I believe is how you would say those names. I apologize because I very well could be butchering those. But this is a documentary, and it is following the Rolling Stones on their very infamous 1969 US tour, which eventually culminates in a free concert at San Francisco's Altamont Speedway. And we are following basically the story of this concert for most of this film. We watch kind of the setup and the build up to making this concert happen, and then we finally get the concert itself. And we actually do see some footage from other concerts as we build up to it and everything like that, but really the main focus of the story is this specific concert, because this, of course, is the concert that will end in violence. And the penultimate act of violence is the death of one of the concert goers by the hands of the Hells Angels. Coming into this movie, I really thought that the Hells Angels were the villains of this story. But watching it, they kind of are. A lot of the violence does stem from them, and it could be argued that the reason the man who ends up getting killed ends up pulling out a gun is because of the violence that happened to him beforehand. But at the end of it, I didn't quite get that it was as black and white as that. I definitely understand why the Hells Angel individual ended up getting, not guilty. He was, acquitted for self-defense, if I'm not mistaken. So I understand why. And if you watch this, you kind of get that footage and you might draw a different conclusion, but that's what I gathered from it. But this documentary follows this concert, and I loved kind of the build to this. Like, it really felt like a powder keg about to explode. And obviously, of course, it does. It's just so interesting to see all of these like the amount of drug usage here is just insane. And the people that you watch, from the 1969, it is just the era of the hippie, and it was like the most stereotypical hippies you could ever imagine. It was quite humorous to watch, but outside of that, this is actually an example of direct cinema, which I'd never heard of until I watched this movie and did a little bit of research. But direct cinema is basically where it's documented filmmaking where the director is not going to comment on or investigate what's going on. They're simply going to show you the events as they occur. And I've decided, after watching at least with this one, that I'm not the biggest fan of that because it feels a little exploitative, especially. So let me backtrack a little bit here. We're actually watching what's almost like a movie within a movie, because we are watching the Rolling Stones, the band members, watch some of this footage is of this concert until it eventually leads up to this act of violence, this penultimate act of violence. At one point, we see the director watching them watch, and he has this big smile on his face, and it's just like, this was only weeks, if I'm not mistaken, weeks or a couple months after this actual event happened, and here he is with this big smile on his face watching these band members kind of, I don't know, just witness these events again for the first time, and it just felt out of place. And that's another reason that it felt more like exploitation cinema than I expected a documentary like this to feel. But that said, like, even though it wasn't for me, this is definitely one of the most popular music documentaries of all time. I totally respect it for what it is. It's a good film. It's an important film. It's just not one that I loved. Like, I thought it was pretty good. Would I watch it again? Honestly, probably not. But I will say the music in this is fantastic. If you're a Rolling Stones fan, there's so much to love here. It's great. But I don't know. And maybe it is one I need to watch again to really get, because this one is beloved amongst the music community. But yeah, for me, it just, I wanted a little bit more. I'm a true crime guy, as you guys know, and so I just wanted a little more like depth into what happened with this actual crime as opposed to just them showing us the event. So that's just is what it is. So good movie. I respect the heck out of it, but just wasn't my favorite. So I ended up giving Gimme Shelter from 1970 3 out of 5 stars, and it comes in at number 4 this month. Coming in at number 3 is going to be one of the 2 horror films I watched. This is Phantasm from 1979, directed by Don Coscarelli. And this was one that I picked because I drew the prompt. I believe it was something like, watch a film that you disliked the first time you saw it, and that was Phantasm. I did not enjoy this movie much at all the first time I watched it. I think it had like a 3 out of 10 on on IMDb and like a 1.5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Like, I didn't get into it at all. But I love rewatching movies I didn't like the first time because sometimes they end up being great. And this one, great is a stretch, but this is definitely a good movie that I respect so much more now. Had a really good time with this one on a second viewing. So with Phantasm, we are following these 2 brothers. I believe the older brother is 23. The younger brother is like 13, I believe, somewhere around there. And they are, their parents have passed away in a car accident, and they are now trying to deal with our Tall Man, who is kind of the known villain from the Phantasm series. The Tall Man is this seemingly supernatural force that is like the mortician at a local cemetery. And they are trying to figure out like what's going on with him, what these like small little creatures are that are near him, and just a lot of weird things happening at the cemetery. And so they're trying to figure out all that and deal with the Tall Man. And, you know, I think they do a very good job with specific elements of this film. One, the music. I really enjoyed the music in this. It is very simple, but it just works really well, and it really helps set the tone of this film, as does a lot of the set pieces here. I don't know what it was necessarily, but I really had fall vibes watching this. It just felt like a good like October horror movie, which is kind of strange because I think it takes place in like a warmer climate area, but still, that's the kind of vibes I was getting, and I really enjoyed that about it. The other thing is the sound design. I thought was done really well. There's the couple moments with like tuning forks that are just really interesting and done very effectively. I really loved how they were used. So the sound, both the design and in the music, I thought were really great in this film. Also, the use of texture that Coscarelli is able to find in this is great, specifically inside I guess it would be like the mausoleum, where the walls in the background of the shots are just wonderful. They are wonderfully textured and vibrant in like black and white way, but they look fantastic, and it's actually one of the few things I remembered from my first time watching this film, so they definitely stood out to me. I totally forgot about the ending. It's a very ambiguous ending, and that was kind of weird, and you know, I did some research after kind of to see what others thought of it, and I don't know where I fall, but it was interesting. So this is definitely a slow moving film, though. That said, there's definitely aspects I enjoy, but keep in mind it is a slower paced movie, and I did find that my mind, there's nothing on the back, but I flipped it around anyway, my mind was wandering a little bit as the film went on. So, you know, it is what it is. I enjoyed it a heck of a lot more this time through, and I appreciated it a lot more than I did the first time, but it's still not a favorite of mine. I'll also mention the sphere, the very famous Phantasm sphere, is a really cool, like, prop, but it doesn't last very long, unfortunately. So I thought they could have done so much more with that, and maybe they do in the sequels, but yeah, either way, it's definitely like the coolest, it's part of the coolest kill in the film, but I just wanted even more from it. So just a very unique, strange, it feels like one of those cult movies, and that's exactly, you know, this film definitely has a cult following, and I understand why. So definitely liked this one a lot more my second time through, so I'm glad I rewatched it, and I can absolutely see myself watching it again, and I want to check out the sequels now, which fortunately I have all 5 movies here, so yeah, that makes me happy. But anyway, I ended up giving Phantasm from 1979 3.5 out of 5 stars, and it comes in at number 3. Coming in at number 2 is an extremely unique film that I was not anticipating at all. This is White of the Eye from 1987, directed by Donald Cammell. So this was a movie, I thought it was just like, I thought it was a giallo. I thought it was an Italian giallo film, and it's not. It is an American film. It's actually set in Tucson, Arizona, which props to you if you can name another film down below that takes place in Tucson, Arizona, because I sure can't think of one. But this is a slasher film, sort of. It really feels to me like an American giallo. When I'm not a giallo expert by any stretch of the imagination, but what I've seen from them, they are basically a stylized slasher film, and that is absolutely what this is. But it's not Italian, it's American, which is why I would consider it really an American giallo. So I'll mention first off, you can see this is actually a Region B release, which I totally forgot about until I went to go watch it and then realized, oh, nope, that's not going to work in my normal player. So I had to watch it in my, actually I didn't even watch it in my Region Free, I watched it in my UK PS3 so I could get through it. But anyway, so with this one, the police force is trying to find out who this serial killer is in Tucson, Arizona, who is killing a bunch of rich housewives. On top of that, we're following the White family, titular White of the Eye, and they run like this high-end stereo business or sound business out of their home, and we follow them because the tire tracks on Mr. White's truck, or van rather, happen to match the tire tracks found at one of the crime scenes, and so it's it's basically a whodunit, who is a serial killer, but I feel like it's less about that and more other things, but of course I'm not giving any spoilers for these, so I'm going to be very vague. But what I loved about this movie is, first off, the acting is just fantastic. David Keith plays Mr. White in this. He's wonderful, and then his wife as well is so great. Kathy Moriarty, she's excellent. They are just perfect together. I love them on the screen together. They just work so well. I believed everything that was happening with them, and that's so important because what I loved most about this is the fact that the serial killer in this was incredibly realistic, which, as a true crime fanatic, as I've already mentioned, you don't often get that. You have very stereotypical things that normally happen, but that didn't really happen here. It could be argued toward the end, once the reveal kind of happens, that there was more stereotypical things, but leading up to it, I think is just so well done, and it feels so realistic to what a real serial killer would be. He's not going to be this psycho man, down the street. He's going to be the guy next door, and so I love that aspect of it. I thought they did that so just intelligently, and it worked really well. So on top of all of that, I just think the story is interesting to watch. The plot is consistently moving forward. I did not find this to be slow at all, even though there are, some moments of extended dialogue. I thought they worked really well. They were always driving the story forward. And again, just the style of this film is unlike anything I've seen in quite some time. The opening sequence alone is like a Picasso painting done on film. It is insane. And it's just a kill sequence too. Like, it's just so unique. That's just the word that I keep wanting to say when I think about this film. I love the music in this as well. There was some licensed music that I thought just fit perfectly for what they were trying to do. This was just a really well done, well made American giallo. That's like the best way I can describe this. I absolutely recommend this one. I had no idea what to expect, but I do want to show you guys the reversible cover art. That's so cool too. But I didn't know what to expect, and I was kind of shocked by what was presented here. I was expecting Italian. I got Tucson, Arizona. Just was not expecting the style that was with this film at all. So this was just so much fun to watch. I will definitely watch this one again. Great film. I ended up giving White of the Eye from 1987 4 out of 5 stars. So that means that coming in at number 1 is my other Criterion release. This is The Killing from 1956, directed by Stanley Kubrick. This is the type of film that whenever I get asked down the line, what's a movie you wish you could see again for the first time? The Killing will be my answer from here on out. This was, if you like pulp, if you like film noir, if you like tension, you have to see this film. It is phenomenal. So out of the ones I watched, I would say, obviously this was my favorite. This one might be the most underrated because I never hear anybody talk about it, so I definitely recommend that. But if you're only going to watch one, it has to be The Killing if you've not seen it. Oh my gosh, Stanley Kubrick does it again. I am someone who always appreciates what Kubrick is able to bring to a film. Even though I've not watched everything of his, what I have seen has just been phenomenal, and I really need to make a concentrated effort to make my way through the rest of his filmography because I'm consistently blown away by what he's able to do in all different genres. That's what's most amazing to me. He can do horror, he can do film noir. The man, this is really crime. Like, he can do so much and make it interesting and entertaining to watch. So The Killing is a heist movie. We are watching this group of men who are trying to basically rob a racetrack of $2 million. They say it's like nothing that like this has ever been done before, and it'll be the largest take ever in something like this. And just for reference, I can't remember now, it was like $2 million in 1956 is basically the equivalent of like $21 million today or something along those lines. So $2 million was just an astronomical amount of money. And what's so cool about this is, even though it's 1956 and we're watching like an attack at a horse race with actual physical cash, this is all things that have like gone out of vogue decades ago, but it still felt incredibly relevant and incredibly timely. Like, it felt like something that could be done today. It was just done so well in that regard. The acting in this, absolutely fantastic from start to finish. There is not a role in here that I feel like is weak at all, from the main players to our supporting cast. Everything just works so well. And I love the characters because everyone plays a small, sometimes even tiny role in making this heist work, and and trying to pull off this heist. And even the smallest mistake can make everything go wrong. And so as soon as they pick up into the heist, like, I found myself holding my breath. I was tense. I was on the edge of my seat, needing to know what was going to happen. Were they going to pull it off? And I loved the characters. Like, I wanted them to succeed, even though technically they're the bad guys in this scenario. But I just loved what they, like, their backgrounds, everything that Kubrick brought to this was just so interesting to me. And it's actually based on a book, and so of course a lot of that is coming from the book itself as well. But just the way it's all comes together is fantastic. The other aspects of this I loved were just the camera movements. You can definitely tell this is young Kubrick. Now, obviously, in The Shining is when they will bring in Steadicam, and that becomes very much so kind of a thing that The Shining is known for. But there are aspects of camera movements in this that felt very Steadicam-like. Obviously, it wasn't, but it had similar vibe to it. And so I thought that was really cool, just to see kind of that same idea 30 years earlier, almost 30 years earlier, in The Killing with Kubrick. Like, that was just awesome. The finale on this, again, of course, no spoilers, but it is just an amazing finish. It's, again, a movie I really hope, like, I really wish I could just watch it again for the first time, because I don't think it'll ever have the same impact as it did when I watched it the other day. But it was just so great. I absolutely loved this one. I feel like I could go on, and I'm missing so much stuff that I want to talk about on this, but I think I'll leave it there. I've gushed enough. If you have only going to watch one, watch The Killing, because this is just such a fantastic movie. If you like I said, film noir, tension, excellent characters, a gripping story. Like, I was just on the edge of my seat. I loved this movie. It was fantastic. So I ended up giving The Killing from 1956 4.5 out of 5 stars, and that is going to end up at number 1 for this month. All right, so there are my 4 films from my July TBW, and what a fantastic month. Like, and actually, I was looking through my notes on The Killing just a second ago, and I forgot to mention that it's told in a non-linear style, like in 1956. That's just so cool. It felt ahead of its time, and it felt so relevant even today. So check that movie out, and check out White of the Eye, because it's just, I never hear anybody talk about it, and I thought it was so unique and just well done. Definitely 2 movies that I think are 100% worth your time. But anyway, I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments below. What have you seen out of this list, and which ones did you love? Which ones do you hate? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Let me know down below. And let me also mention that I am going to take the month of August off from my TBW game, simply because we are already more than halfway through the month. And so I'm getting at the point now where it's like middle of the month time, and it's just not worth it. So I'm going to take the month of August off from the game and then jump back in it in September. At least that's the idea. Maybe I'll change my mind in a week and you'll see a 6-week long video for my TBW. Who knows? But that's what I'm thinking right now. But anyway, guys, let me know any and all thoughts down in the comments below. I always appreciate anything down there, so thanks so much for that. And as always, if you guys did enjoy this video, please hit that like button down below. That engagement really does help me out. Like I always say, I don't just talk movies, I talk all things media, be it books, movies, video games, graphic novels, manga. If it's media related, I'm interested in it, and if you are too, you might consider subscribing. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching this one, and I want to encourage you to consume some media today. I'll catch you next time.